So I'm going to be doing a sunflower today. And we are going to put some blue on here. Let me show you what kind of colors I'm using. So I'm using Ranger ink. This is Sailboat Blue. And I think I'm going to use some Cloudy Blue to go with it. Cloudy Blue has a little bit more gray in it because it's cloudy. So I think it makes a good sky combo because we don't want Sailboat Blue to be too bright. So I'm just going to kind of pounce it around the edges because the yellow is of course a complementary color to blue, and well, it's a primary color, light blue, so it's not quite a complementary, but it is the opposite and will make kind of a mud if we are not careful. So the cool thing about alcohol ink though is the yellow will push the blue out of the way and won't combine as much as it would if it was acrylic or anything like that. So I'm still gonna have some blue that the yellow will hit, but at least I have a little bit more control if I kind of just keep it on the sides. So I'm just kind of pouncing my brush just to give like a texture and mixing the two blues together. And I kind of keep doing it until the color starts drying, and the more I move through there as the alcohol is evaporating, it will then leave kind of a neat texture. Now I don't want these little hard edges, so I'm going to push those out. And I'm going to wipe my brush because I don't want lines. I call these halos. So these little alcohol ink dry spots that are harsh, they're called halos. And this paper I'm using is actually the Nara paper. And if you press hard enough with your alcohol, you can actually remove back to the white. Nara and Duralar, I think, are the two that do the best of going back to white. You can do cheaper versions of paper and they won't be as forgiving. Tiles also will wipe back to white. All right, so I got a background down. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to use my pre-dried inks that I have in these little pods, and I'm going to then add some greenery into my skyish kind of blue color. All right, so I'm just kind of tapping with the tip of my brush and making some leaf shapes. It's just an abstract depiction, okay? I'm not trying to draw leaves. This is small. And I'm gonna use a couple variations of different different greens. I'm not sure which one's which in here anymore because they've kind of muddied out. Looks like I'm using Evergreen and Mojito, but I like my yellow-green ones too. Down here is, I can't read this one, but it's probably Limeade or one of those. I really like the new Moss. It's kind of a gray green. It's really pretty, but this one's probably Limeade or Lettuce. I think this one might be Lettuce just because of the color of it. So I really like those colors. So I'm gonna kind of just add some leaves in here. Now I'm gonna put some branches and stuff and berries in here too. It's just kind of a decoration around our focal point of the sunflower. So of course I am not working on my sunflower yet, and that's okay. I'm just kind of building my background. I like to build from back forward when I'm painting. You can kind of fill in around the edges, but you don't get as clean at edges and you might get some mud. So I like to go back and forth. And I kind of work around my whole surface. I don't finish one item before moving on to the next because alcohol ink has to dry and you're going to get more detail and stuff if you're working on a drier surface. Learning the technique of how much alcohol you need in your brush is a learned thing. You got to practice. So if the first time you do this, it bleeds out and goes, and I'll show you what that looks like. I'm going to do that just for a second. If I have too much alcohol, it's going to bleed out and do that. So I just tap off my brush. If I see it moving too fast, I come back and get my green, and I just come back in here and work right over it. It really isn't life-threatening if you kind of lose some of your drawing. It's okay. I always tell my students there is no mistakes in art. It is just learning and playing. We play, we learn, and we make beautiful art in the process. And maybe some ugly sometimes. And that's okay. Because again, we still learn. So, all right. Now, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but where this blue's drying, the halo colors we get sometimes will have an undertone. And so this ink obviously has a pink or red undertone in the blue. I think it's in the cloudy blue. So you can see that this would make a really good, pretty cloudy sky because it kind of has the pinks of like fluffy clouds. So there's different colors that do pretty halos and some they don't have the greatest halos. And you have to learn those, you know, benefits and drawbacks so that you know how to best use your product. Okay, I'm just gonna put a few more leaves in here. Now, this brush is getting a little scrubby. It doesn't come to a nice perfect point, but it does work great for these greeneries and backgrounds. So when I'm doing my detail work, this is not my detail brush. But I don't throw them away right away. Like I use them at all levels. Like this one will actually end up sooner or later becoming what I call my scrub brush, where I actually just really pounce into it, and I call it a pouncing brush. Is that the technical term? No, that's the Nicole term. So, all right. So I think I'm gonna stop there. I can always add more later, and that gives me a good start. So the next thing I'm gonna do is start to put my flower in. So I have ran out of yellow over here. I have dandelion yellow and sunshine yellow, and I am gonna start drawing my sunflower. So we are going to just kind of make a circle of petals with a big center in the center, okay? So I'm just kind of drawing them, and you can see it's going over the blue, okay? And see how it's turning a little bit green, because yellow and blue makes green, if I go over that blue and let it stay. So if I want to get it back to yellow, I just wipe it through with the alcohol on my brush and pull it and wipe it off on my pad. Now I like to use puppy pads because it, see, this is the sunshine blue. Isn't it a pretty yellow? It's nice and rich and sunflowery. So I'm going to start with my dandelion to get my lighter color undertones. I had grabbed the wrong yellow just now, so I just wanted to show you it. So I'm going in here and putting my petals in here. I started to say feathers. I like to put weird words in front of things. All right, so again, I got a lot of green going here. It's probably a little bit stronger here. So I'm just gonna kind of keep wiping until I can get it back to more of a yellow or a white. So right here I have a little bit of a stain. I grab my alcohol, dab it off, and I'm gonna kind of scrub this out and see if I can get rid of it. Okay, I got it a little bit gone, and that's okay. We're gonna lose that anyway, so it's fine. All right, so now I'm going up into this green, pull that out. So there's a lot of push and pull in alcohol ink. We are pushing the yellow in, we are pulling the blue out, getting our shape in there, right? Now this blue will also add some dimension to the feathers. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It's gonna add shadows. You can see blue undertones and shadows. I could even put some purple in there if I wanted to get some shadows. It's okay. So I have a lot of green right here. I'm gonna have to take a lot of that out. I'm gonna turn this. And like I said, I cut down a piece of narrow paper to a 6x6 size. So I took a 12x12 and made 4 squares out of it to, you know, make my paper stretch. This is a class I'm gonna be teaching in May for Mother's Day. And I just wanted to make a sample, and I figured that I'd make a video and practice. And I have a screaming cat over there. You guys would never guess his name. His name is Mew, because he mews all the time. Actually, his whole name is Mewtwo Muffintails. Isn't it cute? My son screams every time I say it and says, that is not his name. But I don't care. I think it's funny. All right. So you want to know why he's Mewtwo Muffintails? He is Mewtwo Muffintails because we had named all our cats with M names. So he was Muffin first. Then we had an old cat named Mew that was a female. And my whole family likes Pokemon. And there's a Mew that's a female. Well, she looks more female-ish. And then they had a new Pokemon named Mewtwo. And he's more male-ish, and this is our male. And so he was Mewtwo. They both mewed like crazy. Meowed like crazy. And he's the only one of my 3 cats that actually has a tail. So it's Mewtwo Muffin-Tails. And it sounds good together. All right, so I think I got this about built in there. Now, of course, I've lost my center, and I'm playing with just kind of getting my shape in here, right? But now I want to come in here with this darker orangey yellow and start really putting this in. Now, I'm using it a little wetter, and I'm letting it do its thing. So I'm just kind of grab it almost straight and just kind of paint this color in here and kind of see what it does. I like letting the ink speak for itself. So I'm just gonna put this in here. Paint it on pretty quick. And what are we getting here? Oh, I lost my corner here. That's okay. Need a little bit more of this orangey yellow. This is Sunshine Yellow again. I think I said that earlier, but just in case. All right, now see how it's bled out here? Just gonna make that petal a little bigger. It's easier to go bigger than it is to go smaller. Because like if I try and go smaller and put that sky back in or the leaves, it would be harder. And so I'm okay with it getting a little bit bigger. And sometimes I want that to happen and give me that texture, and sometimes I don't. All right, so let's look at this. Are we getting any weird glares? All right, we're gonna... Okay, so now I would start adding some dimension to my petals, and I'm gonna change brush sizes. So I'm gonna move down to a more detailed brush. Let's do this one. So let's see if this comes to a nice point. Yeah, and it's dirty, so I needed to clean it anyway, right? It's actually got some orange in there that would have probably helped. All right, so now I'm gonna start to draw the shapes. Now, my circle for my sunflower is gonna go right around in here, okay? So this is all gonna become brown. So I'm just gonna kind of put some alcohol on there and let it bleed out. It's give me a nice texture under there. And now I'll start to form these leaves. Not leaves, petals. No leaves, petals. Here we go. All right, so coming out pretty cool. Love, love, love it. Now, do you see my petals are different sizes? This is where you throw your perfectionism out the window. Give yourself some grace and some space to play. Do not make perfect art. Nobody wants perfect art. Art is not perfect. Nature isn't perfect. Everything is different. So we are making pretty, interesting things that draw our eye. So if you notice now, I'm kind of coming from the center here in the petal and bringing it in. And so I'm making more of a petal that's going to connect to the base of it here rather than it being a flat here, because these actually do grow from these seeds in the center of the sunflower. All right, so it's getting pretty. Let's see if I'm going to want to put any other colors in here. And if you want to play with other colors, I mean, you could come in here with blues and pinks and do all sorts of fun stuff if you wanted. All right, so I'm going to grab a little bit of Dijon, which is a little bit of a, I don't know, kind of an ochre. If you guys know, like, oil colors. It's a little bit of a greeny, browny kind of yellow, and I'm going to see how that looks in here. I may like it, I may hate it. I might actually come back in and put some orange in here. But I'm kind of liking some variation in here. Oops, grabbed the wrong one. That's okay. Put some of that there anyway. All right, let's grab some orange. Let's see. Let's see which one this one is. I think this is Valencia. I really like using, I think it's called, let's see. Yeah, this is Valencia right here. But I have this one. This is Sunset Orange. And I like to use this one, but I run out all the time. So I'm gonna drip it right here. And I can grab some from there. So alcohol ink is kind of like watercolor in the fact that you reconstitute it after it dries, unlike acrylic doesn't reconstitute it. Oil doesn't reconstitute, so you have to keep it wet until you're done with it. So yeah, this, you see how this is more of a red orange versus this one isn't? So that's the difference in those colors. And I actually kind of like the Valencia better, believe it or not. So I'm going to use some more of that in there. And I could have probably just stayed with the yellow and not used any oranges, but I'm playing, I'm having fun. So it's totally up to you. This is your painting that you're painting if you're following along. You can play with it however you want. So now I'm just going to blend these a little bit more again. And I don't know if I'm going to add any more orange anywhere else. I think I'm going to let kind of leave this. See how it's balancing across? So I'll let it do that. So we are almost done, believe it or not. The rest of it will come together really quick. We're going to put some fine details with, it looks like I have a cat hair in there. Could be Muse. Anyway, I'm going to put some berries on the little bushes. I'm going to put the center of the flower in, and I'm going to put some stems in the wood. So first, let's do the wood. So I'm going to take some brown. This is sepia. Try that. And we're just going to kind of draw. Now, if you notice, I'm holding the brush straight up and down, and I'm playing with it with just the very, very tip. So this is the belly of the brush. Here's your tip of your brush. The harder you push, the more alcohol is going to be released out of the brush and into the tip. So when you're wanting to do really fine lines, you want to just use the very tip of the brush. Make sure the brush comes into a point, and that way you get those little fine lines. So I'm just adding some little branches in here, and it just kind of brings your eye around. Okay, so I'm just making little shapes. And so I'm just kind of, see this crisscross, that's not going to work. So I'll take that out in a minute. I'll put berries on it or something. That is not going to work. All right, so come like that. Turn this a little bit. Let's see what we got going on. All right, let's go this way maybe. And grab some more sepia. Now I kind of have it flattened out, but it's still flat on one side, so I can still, but if I turned it sideways, I would get this really weird line. All right, I think it's coming. I'll do a few more of these. All right. So the class I'm going to be teaching is going to be in Crowley. I'm starting to do these paper alcohol ink classes more. They seem to be pretty successful. They're a cheaper version of being able to teach. My tiles just had too much overhead, and so it was more expensive for them and more expensive and time consuming for me. And so I offered this one last month, and we painted mushrooms, and it came out really good. And so I think that was probably my most successful, and so that's what I'm going to start doing. So now I'm just making some of these little paintings that I can then teach in classes. But I'm also practicing to get online with classes so that I can share them with the world. All right, so there's my vines, I think, or would you call them vines? Stems? Branches? Branches. Branches, I like that. Branches. All right, so now I'm gonna grab some red. I'm gonna slide this over so you guys can see them. I have all sorts of different reds here. This is Poppy Field, which is the one I'm gonna end up using. And I'm just kind of resaturating it. And oftentimes I move this before it's totally dry and it ends up sloshing outside of this little well. So I like to go in and get the grubby stuff on the sides. It kind of reminds me of the dried cheese in the casserole dish that I love to chew on. Okay, anyway, so we're gonna do some little dots, little dot berries. Okay, so that is not spreading, so I do just a little bit more alcohol, and we're gonna add a little bit more alcohol to it. So do you see how if I just tap it, let the belly release the alcohol into it, it's gonna grow. The more I tap it, the bigger the berry's gonna get. And I'm gonna get a better circle by just doing it that way than trying to draw a perfect circle. Plus it also naturally gives you a little highlight. So just gonna kind of add some berries around here. I seem to always do berries in threes. Odd numbers are always more appealing, of course, but, and also don't keep them all the same size. Don't make too much of a pattern. You want to keep the eye moving and make it interesting. So again, I'm back to this little X here. I'm not sure what I want to do because I put berries there. So what I'm probably going to do is put some more greenery in here in a second. Don't like the X. All right, so maybe put a single berry there. I'm gonna bring this across so I'm not reaching across the camera. All right. And you can come back in. You can also use markers here too. If I wanted to, I could come in here and just put these dots with markers. But for some reason, I guess I feel like I'm a little bit of a purist. If I use markers, I add, I add alcohol to it to move it because God forbid I just leave a mark of alcohol on here, right? I mean a pen on here, then it's not painting. So yeah, I can do this too. And what I would do if I did this is I would then come back in and drop alcohol on it. And so I think I like this because it gives me more pigment really fast. So let's just do this. Makes it fun, easy. And now we know why I don't get to video very often, because I have this little boy that likes to crash my parties. What do we think of the berries? You think I have too many, not enough? What do you think? Good? All right. That balances pretty good. Let me grab just a little bit of green to fix that area that's bothering me. And then I can put the center in the flower and we'll be good to go. All right. So do that. Make sure that that color is the same as everything else. So I gotta move this one out of the way, and I'm gonna grab some of the other color that I had used, because I think that one's a little bit too dirty, too brown, too something. All right. That doesn't look the same either. Okay, that looks better. I'll let it dry there and see if I like it. All right, take that same sepia, and I'm gonna go right in the center with that. So this one, I'm gonna kind of get the color in there, and then I'll start, once it dries again, I'll start to add some dimension. So right now, I'm dropping the color in there, okay? I might even actually drop the color in there, believe it or not. Let's see, this is teak wood, that might work. So I'm gonna drop. Okay, there's a little bit too much alcohol in there right now. So I'm gonna kind of push it back into the center. And I'll tilt it a little bit too. There we go. So now it's starting to set up. And you see how I'm kind of just pushing it around where I want it to be. Oh, another really cool thing about alcohol ink. You can pick it up from one place and put it in another place. You can't do that with any other thing. Watercolor, when you pick it up, it dilutes in the water of the belly of the brush, and so it doesn't really transfer to another area very well. I think alcohol ink's the only one I've ever really seen where I could like pick this up and fill a spot or whatever. So I love that about it. All right, I'm losing my circle. So I'm gonna widen this area a little bit, kind of put it out. So look how much color, and I put one drop. You guys saw me put one drop, and look what I got out of it. Isn't that cool? So now I'm just gonna lighten the center because the sunflowers I like to look at, they kind of get bigger and darker, and they kind of sink into the center and are lighter there. So I'm gonna kind of add some texture in here. Now, do you see, as it's drying, I'm then coming in here and adding the texture. Now, when I put a dot, it pushes the alcohol, the ink, I mean, not the alcohol. The alcohol pushes the ink out and makes these little cells or halos that give you the dimension. I like using these little halos when I'm drawing and painting because what it does is it gives me kind of a line without having to go through and put a black line in something. I just saw this out of the corner of my eye and I didn't like the lines, so I'm just changing that a little bit. So watch, this is what I was talking about, picking up the color and moving it. So if I want some of this orange over here, I can pick it up and move it over here. Pick it up and move it over here. All right, so now I'm gonna come in with my espresso, which I think this is espresso right here. If it's not, this is. So, and this is my darkest brown, and I'm gonna add some of that in here. Okay. All right. My brush is virtually dry, okay? It's mostly pigment with not a lot of alcohol. And I'm, again, just using the tip because I want little tiny marks, not a lot of alcohol. If it starts to bleed out, you're getting too much halo. What do? I wipe it on my thing and keep going. Now I'm gonna come in a little bit and cover some of this area in here with some darker. Okay, and I think I'm about ready to sign it. What you guys think? Pretty good? I think I like it. Let's see. I think I'm gonna bring some of this orange to balance just a little bit up in here. It's feeling a little, and I feel like I lost this petal a little bit. So let me just play a little bit longer, and then I think we're going to be done and call it signable. Now, I have this kind of rule in my mind. It's not that it's a hard, fast rule, but when I sign it, that means I stop working on it. And that means I've decided that it is finished. And I try to make the rule that if I have signed it, I do not go back and work it anymore. I've made the decision that it is done. Because often, people that are trying to be artists and are learning, they overwork things. They start making mud. They start second guessing themselves. And so sometimes it's good to just stop and back away. You can also come back the next day. If you don't feel like it's done, but you're not liking it, get up and walk away. Come back the next day with fresh eyes and you're going to be able to get what you want. Yeah, that's better. So now it's all tied together and I'm happy. So I'm going to pull my sign brush. I like using Posca pens to sign with. This is not the right tip, but we'll see how it does. These are paint pens. I think they're acrylic based. We'll see if I can get ink out of this. I can hear the ink, but this tip I always have more troubles with than my little ones. This is a, can't even read it. It's a PC1M. I prefer, let's see, I have a few thousand of these, but I need my black one, which is right here. Okay, this is the one I like. So this one, nope, that's not it either. Hang on, I shall find it. It's this one, but it's not open. I'm looking for my opened one. But this is the PC1M. I have my white one right here, but I don't see my black one. Let's see, PC1M. It's a 0.7 millimeter. That's my favorite. And they pump out really nice. I am not finding it right now. It's here somewhere. So, imagine I signed it. Here, I'll sign it with a bigger one. Oh wait, is this the same one I was just trying to use? Yep. Okay, just imagined I signed it. Thank you, bye.